I want to make a land acknowledgement that we are on the land of the Salish Sea people, specifically the Puyallup tribe that has a relationship with Vashon Island School District. This is the time for public comment, and just for all of you who may be watching this, a reminder that at board meetings, we do not converse with the public because it is a board meeting, but we do welcome public comment, and we are interested in what you're thinking and what's concerning you. And Susie Murphy, do you have a comment that you would, okay, anybody else? Okay, let's move right along then to the consent agenda. First off, are there any questions from the board members about what is on the agenda and the items that you would like to discuss? Okay, then could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as written?
Motion to approve consent agenda as written.
Second, please. And all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The motion passes. Okay, moving right along here. We have the pleasure of Cassie Cisa. As always, we love to hear our reports on the finances, so take it away.
We have 2 months today, so we'll start with June. In June, we were in our 10th operating month of the 24-25 fiscal year. You can see our general fund revenues are at 83.21%. Expenditures are creeping up towards 86%. We have more in fund balance in general fund this month compared to this time last year. We have higher revenues and significantly higher expenditures compared to the same time last year. Transfer of credit card revenue from general fund is current through the month of June. Again, expenditures coming in at 85.83%. That's 2.83% higher than the normalized projection of 83%. And we're up 5.92% year to year. In capital projects, we have a little bit higher revenue based on tax collection. We have our tech expenditures and salaries posted in June. Debt service fund is performing as expected. In ASB, we have revenue a little bit higher than this time last year. Expenditures are similar. We have our credit card revenue reconciliation current through June. And our transportation vehicle fund is performing as expected. If we scroll down a little bit, we have our enrollment report. And then the next page is our comparison year to year. Budget status report, and really the big thing we want to look at is our system compared to the county treasurer. So if you look at the first kind of place where we have the colors, we'll start with general fund. There's 2 reconciliation items. Keep scrolling. So we have a little bit of an offage in both our cash with the county treasurers, as well as our warrants outstanding, so those are noted as reconciliation items. If you keep scrolling down to the next fund, which is capital projects, everything is completely balanced. And scrolling through, we'll see debt service is balanced. ASP has a reconciliation item that is noted, and then transportation vehicle fund is also balanced. If you want to switch to July, we'll start all the way back over at the beginning. So July is our 11th operating month of 24-25. Revenues are at 93.78%, and our expenditures are at 93.99%. Fund balance in general fund is also higher this year compared to this time last year. Higher revenues, significantly higher expenditures, which has been pretty steady for several months now. We have our transfer of credit card revenue current through the month of July. expenditures are just about 3% higher than the normalized projection of 91%. And we're up almost 6.5% this year compared to last year. In capital projects, holding steady, we've got a little bit higher revenue based on tax collection. Debt service is performing as expected. AFB revenue is a little bit higher than this time last year with expenditures just about the same. And transportation vehicle fund is performing as expected. You keep scrolling through, you'll see the fund comparison, which leads the graphs up above, the budget status report, which, as Justin says, does no good, so we can scroll through it and look at our comptroller report. And the good news here is everything is completely balanced, so general fund, and as we scroll through capital projects, debt service, ASB, and transportation vehicle fund, everything is reconciled up through July, which sets us up really nicely to close out August. Just to note that because the end of the month falls on the weekend, essentially tomorrow is the close of our fiscal year. So we're prepping for that and then to do all of the required tasks that go with closing the fiscal year, which will take a little bit beyond August 31st, but we're set up nicely to hopefully have a very smooth process.
That's great news. Thank you, Cassie, for all your work. Any questions? Yeah, Rick.
Two questions. Because we're looking, I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly, starting with the 11th month and being at 93.99%, and then there's a 12th month with less than 10%. So how do things look for the 12th month?
Yep, so we actually ran our last batch earlier this week, and then we did a special run today, so I just want to give some recognition to Kelly Murphy, because that was a big lift on her. She had to run everything extra today that people didn't turn in, so that we could make sure that we got it out, so that's really what she did all day today. Even with those going through, we still have pretty low expenditures for the month of August. I'm pretty sure that will switch when we see September, because we've got all that new school year spending happening. But it's lower, so I'm hoping it will be under that 100%. I haven't run the numbers just yet. We won't see the comptroller report until the 10th. But I'm hopeful that we won't exceed the 100%. And we did get our revenue posted earlier this week from August. It's less than July as expected, but I think cash flow wise we should be okay. But we'll continue to keep a close eye on that, and then just making sure that we get all of our grant things done by the September deadline, so that we can have a really great separation between 24-25 and 25-26, which will also keep the cash flow process.
Sure. So for very good reason, we don't see enrollment numbers for July. It's not relevant. But and I know there's not any official enrollment right now. School year hasn't started. Is there any information in terms of where projections were and where folks feel like it's coming in terms of where we're?
It's too soon to tell. Too soon to tell. But you will get a report at the next board meeting based on our first 4 days of enrollment. And then October is the count day, right? October 1st, I think, is official count day.
Yeah, those first 4 days are pretty crucial, and then things kind of stabilize throughout the month. Even sometimes we have people that come in late, those types of things. So it'll definitely be on the forefront of our minds for a pretty good time to start.
Other questions for Cassie? Thank you very much. Cassie, if you want to go, please do.
I will hang out until I need to leave for the 8:20, so thank you.
All right, thanks. Okay, moving right along. We have the privilege of having Dr. Chris McDuffie come and help us with the beginning of what is going to be a very important island experience, which is the superintendent search. Come on up. Chris, I want to make it really clear as your board, we have engaged Haya for our superintendent search, and if you've been following along, You will find, if you're interested, updates on the entire process as we go through. Over the summer, the website was down, so, and there wasn't really anything much to say anyway. But you will be getting, if you're interested in what the process is, and we will be posting, we will be talking about things in the Beachcomber. Our intent as a school board is to be very transparent about the process. One of the reasons why we hired this firm is that they have a great reputation for community outreach. Now, the board makes the decision on the superintendent, but the community should have a great deal of input into what they, meaning all constituents, are looking for in a new superintendent. So what you're going to hear is the very beginning of this process in an organizational type way. So thank you very much, Chris. Take it away.
Well, good evening. Thank you so much, not only for hosting tonight, but for selecting HYA. We were honored to be selected. I was sorry I couldn't join on the interview when you met my two colleagues, and I believe they have joined us. I see them up there, and you might remember John Batch and Sylvia Ibarra. So thank you both for joining me. I'm sorry to have my back to the rest of all of you. I look forward to meeting all of you. Sure.
Why don't you sit?
Would that work?
Yeah, sure.
You know, it's the old high school principal in me that doesn't want their back to, you know. So pleasure to be here. John and Sylvia and I have been in public education collectively for over 100 years. You know, don't ask us which ones got which years, but we are so committed to helping school districts, especially with this really critical decision before you. We've all served as superintendents for a long time as well. So we're very excited to officially launch with you tonight. In your packet are 3 pieces that we need to work through together to see how far we get. On the left side of the folder is just an overview of the process. So at a glance, just to remind you that there's 4 phases, right? That we will be launching engagement very shortly. It moves from there directly to recruitment. Those 2 happen simultaneously. And then the selection process, we'll talk through what you can expect there. And then transition. We're so committed to ensuring that you have a very smooth transition with your new superintendent, and we'll talk through a little bit about that as well. We offer a workshop so that you and your new superintendent can sit together and listen and learn, and so we can talk more about that. But those are the 4 phases. You can see across the top, it's also broken down of who's doing what at any given phase. So just a reminder from our proposal at a glance. And then the next piece is really our working agenda for this evening. Some things that we need your direction on as soon as possible. So that's about an 8 or 9 page document before you. And then finally, a very rough draft of a position announcement that we'd like to talk with you about this evening. So everybody has all 3 pieces. We're good. And this would be for Juniper, so that would be that. Absolutely. So John and Sylvia hopefully will be able to just jump in and add here and there, but we wanted to just really thank you again and get right into the meat of the work, starting with item number 2, which is board liaisons. We need 2 board members. It's usually the board president, and oftentimes it's the chair and the vice chair, or the president and vice president, who serve in those roles. So we set up standing weekly meetings to touch base, just to make sure there's open communication. We talk about how things are going. Oftentimes we need some direction. But that's just our kind of weekly working arrangement. And then after those meetings, we report out to the whole board for sure, how things are going, just the highlights to make sure that every board member is fully informed along the whole journey. But if you have an idea, just to kick it off with who would serve, or if you want to get back to us.
I have thoughts?
I would love to get back.
Yeah, I know that, I think Juniper should be.
Juniper is chair, and for the second, I want to get back.
Okay, so Juniper for sure.
Okay, and then we'll hear back about this.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Juniper or I will get back to you on that.
That sounds great. Thank you. And then we just got contact information. Peter was very kind to give me cell phones. Thank you all. I hope that they're correct. If I made a typo, let me know. But there are times throughout the search where we really just need to check with you on something. So cell phones are great. I'll try to get Peter and Joe as well soon. But you've got all of our contact information on the top of page 2. Please call us anytime. I think you heard during the interview that we make ourselves available to you 24/7. We're committed to this relationship going well. So please feel free to reach out to any one of the 3 of us. We work very collaboratively together throughout the process. So starting off with just contact information. Number 3, the letter of agreement was taken care of right away, so that's a check off. We made one edit, which was to extend the guarantee, and we were happy to do that for you, so that was an edit. Item number 4, if we could just hold that for now, because it really gets into the nitty-gritty, and our apologies for the Walla Walla notation, but just so you know, the Walla Walla search went very well. But this calendar reflects hopefully your needs, and we'll get back to that in just a minute. So we're kind of skipping ahead to page 4. Everybody okay? Okay. And that has to do with engagement, right? That's the first phase. And we know we've heard from you clearly that your commitment to a transparent process and a fully engaged process with your community and your constituents. So there's a couple components. First of all, we do one-on-one interviews, focus groups, and forums. And in addition, we offer a survey option that we need to talk about so that everyone's voice has an opportunity to be heard. And we're going to do everything we can to reach your constituents, even those hard to reach. We adjust our time, we adjust our location, we go out to their communities, their gathering places, and do our best to make sure people have had a chance personally. But then the survey's open to everyone, right? We're going to push that as well. So if we could start with the survey, and John, can you hear me okay? Can we hear John okay?
Yeah, we might need that volume up.
John, do you mind talking about the...
Can you hear me?
That's better.
Yes.
Do you want to
Okay.
talk about the survey options?
Certainly, yeah. So included in the base fee is our Google form survey, and that mirrors the questions that we ask in each of the focus group sessions. We lead off with an introduction of the process, answer the questions participants might have, and then we start with what the greatest strengths are in the district, followed by greatest challenges people perceive that they believe the next superintendent should be aware of, and finally, the desired qualities and characteristics they believe the board should prioritize for the next superintendent. We launched that one as the engagement phase begins, so that during our focus group sessions, We can also remind participants to let their friends and family know and expand participation that way. And so that's option one. Option two is a research-based survey grounded in research on best practices with high-performing school districts. And we've had some districts opt into that, and that provides more questions than just a superintendent search. And so we've had some districts who are interested in that, and others who've said, well, we already do, for example, a Center for Educational Effectiveness survey every year. And so we see a bit of overlap there, so we're not sure that the additional expense is warranted in this case. So with each district we work with, we certainly make that available. It's also, if you do opt into that, it's provided in English and Spanish, but there's some additional costs if you have other languages you want it translated into. On the Google Form survey that's included, we can easily translate. We just use an online tool for that, and then if you have any translation services you've used in your district, we are also open to running that by them to make sure we're accommodating non-English speakers appropriately. Maybe I'll hit the pause button there. Chris, anything you would add?
No, I think you covered it well. I think we don't need a decision right away. We've got some time before we would be launching that survey anyway, about 3 weeks or so probably. So if you want to think about that, and you may remember in the proposal, there was a sheet about kind of what does that report look like? Is it really worth the $2,000? But it is a valid, reliable, research-based tool. Oftentimes districts we have found that may not have an updated strategic plan, for instance, that's a good tool for them to use. But you may want to just revisit that and think about it, because otherwise the Google form has really provided you with a whole lot of feedback as well.
So Chris, I have a question. Did South Whitby opt for that enhanced research? I don't think they did.
Yeah.
No, they,
Okay.
and they, just because I have to know, they didn't have we had a strategic plan, but it was not up to date, and they still benefited from the regular survey. The real meat of the matter is all of the constituent groups.
Right. That's what I thought
And
too.
then that in-person work that they do to get all of those groups to come in. I mean, the survey helped. They had several hundred respondents, but many of them came to the group meetings as well.
And the group meetings, what is wonderful about the group meetings is it will allow people who are not either savvy with a computer or don't have one at home.
Right.
So that's good.
And will all the group meetings be in person, or is there Zoom level options? What does that look like?
We look to you for guidance. I mean, we prefer in person for that personal touch, but we also know that attending in person is not always an option. So we offer both. For instance, oftentimes the forums are broadcast as well as attend in person. We want to do whatever it takes to ensure
So like
that.
our commuter families have a Zoom
Exactly.
option so that they still participate without having.
Exactly. Yeah, so started the discussion with Peter earlier this afternoon, just getting a feel
Chris,
for.
just one sec. I think what you could do is, you don't have to have you could have a couple of Zoom options that are for anyone, as opposed to you're a member of this group and it's this group's turn, right? Where you open it up and just let people.
Yeah, that would be the forums.
Right,
That we do
right.
that. We encourage you to have at least one forum. We might need to do 2 different times of the day. Again, we've done it very different ways for each community is unique. But yes, the forums, which are come one, come all, and a Zoom option.
And are those usually well attended, or say scarcely attended, similar to most of our meetings?
Hey, yes.
Although I love seeing you all. Thank you for coming.
All 4 of them. Yeah. It's certainly been mixed. We're going to work really hard to get the word out and how important your voice is to this decision and all of that. And if people felt like I had my voice heard through the survey, that's okay if they don't have to show up. But we want to be able to meet them in person, discuss the process, see if they have any questions about the process, and then ask those 3 questions that John mentioned.
Yeah, I would just add that, you know, with this work, with the engagement work and participation, some variables we've seen that kind of become a pattern. One is, depending on the last superintendent and the level of satisfaction or dissatisfaction, the higher the level of dissatisfaction, the more participation we generally see in the forums and the, you know, public-facing opportunities and the survey. And when they come, they often want to tell us what they don't want versus what they do for obvious reasons. A second variable is scheduling, and so we want to be strategic with you and make sure that we're not scheduling on top of, you know, 3 games and 2 concerts. You know, so we want to be smart about how we strategize. And then the third would be, you know, with your team and perhaps Peter and awareness of strategies that have increased participation for other things in your district, like serving food or, you know, a certain time or a certain day of the week. In some districts, they've asked us to avoid Wednesdays, for example. So those kinds of things all factor in.
Just one question, because I really appreciate this, and an incredible strength for us was the in-depth community engagement and the in-person as a part of that. But I do think that Vashon in this district, at least in theory, hopefully in action, prioritizes community and that kind of engagement. And so I'm really grateful. One of the things when I'm looking at this list, there were a couple of things that I noted that maybe aren't here, but I also am wondering, is this list being shared with building and district leadership? Because some of those constituencies I might not be aware of. So for example, one of my thoughts are the groups that have active partnerships with the schools. So like the artists in the schools, or there are some that have ongoing active partnerships.
It will be. This is the first foray. You're the start. So once this meeting happens, we go to the next level, and then we start talking about, you know, making sure that HI is there, and all of the various groups that have come forward just to me in the short time I've been here. But that's the conversation. You don't have to do everything tonight to get there, but that's the conversation.
So we'd encourage you to think about those various groups, make notes, probably just make Peter the point of contact, just send him any that you think of to make sure that they're on the list specifically. Any staff, cabinet and building level leaders, anybody. We will start to build that list, and then we'll probably work with Joe and Peter and start to refine, you know, who needs a one-on-one, who could do a focus group, which focus groups could we combine even, and it would work well, right? Because you don't need 150 different meetings, but we can be strategic about how we group those meetings. And then again, the forums would be open, but they might get a special invite. We value your voice, please attend this forum.
So, yeah, I mean, and this is a pretty traditional list. You know, you make sure you get union leadership, membership from the unions. You make sure you're getting parent community, bigger community. You know, there are many partners. Of course, the admin team, business office team. Peter will not have any rest all spring. And I mean that sincerely, because that's the key to the organizing of all of this. Will take up a lot of time for the board and for Peter in particular.
If I remember well, do you have someone who speaks Spanish in your team?
We do.
Is there a possibility to have a meeting in Spanish?
Yes, we do frequently offer that. Sylvia is bilingual, and/or we work with any interpreters and translators you use in the district as well throughout the process.
Any other languages in your team?
Not in our team, but as far as translation, our company, Cameron, has access to translating many.
Do we have specific languages you want to make sure of besides English and Spanish?
Probably Syrian, or a Syrian family and a Thai family that is, so I mean, we can see if they need it, or at least to know if it's available.
We'll just monitor that. Yeah.
And then at the end of all of this, we would get some kind of summation
Yes.
or chart, or
Yeah.
what will that look like coming back to us so we can make corrections?
Exactly. That all feeds into a leadership profile report, and we'll talk about that in just a minute as well. Again, we're asking the same 3 questions of every group or every individual we meet with, so that we're looking for those trends. If you just do the Google survey, that would be the format. It's really, what are the strengths, what's working well, right? What are the assets? Second question, of course, what are the challenges and opportunities moving forward? And the third question is those characteristics or qualities you're looking for in your next superintendent. We ask the same questions from everyone. So our final report will be participation, who showed up on the survey and in the in-person opportunities. We give you that data.
As to like how many of this group,
Yeah.
or, okay, so we know who's
Right.
weighed in more?
Yes, but it's not scientific, right? It's a qualitative sampling, looking for trends. But those have been really beneficial for both you and the candidates, prospective candidates. They want to learn and see if they would be a good fit before they apply.
Last piece of this part, which is another piece I appreciated about Jill's proposal, was the consideration of having some of these meetings in different spaces, which for some of those might feel safer for some constituent groups, or, and I think that kind of particular vulnerability, Spanish-speaking individuals are feeling in the district, and you mentioned the church or this or that. Would it be helpful for us to generate a list of those places in tandem with the constituent group?
Definitely, we'll have to rely on you. So again, if Joe and Peter can be the clearinghouse for any ideas that all of you have, that would be really appreciated.
Yeah, I think it's important just to state that our mission is to be as inclusive as possible, and I appreciate Joe's clarification that as the planning unfolds, it's layered. So we start with you tonight to make sure we kind of have a big picture vision from you, what you want to accomplish, and then with your school leaders, with your district staff, we start to develop a list, and we bring that back to you and say, okay, here's what we've developed so far, how's that look? And there's a few iterations before we get to, okay, let's launch and go.
Great questions, thank you.
Which is the whole point of having the board liaison, because you can't do these kinds of decisions waiting for the board meeting. So you have to keep it moving, and you have to trust that your board liaisons have the knowledge of the sense of the board, because you can't possibly have a board meeting for every decision here.
Yeah, so communications on the top of page 5 is really, again, making sure that you meet your goal of that transparency. So we will work very closely with Joe and Peter throughout the process. Peter and I already talked about having a dedicated page on your website, maybe its own logo even, just so people can say, okay, this is where we go for the search update.
This is a prime document for that page, to give people a sense of, once you know the dates of, right, that's the kind of thing that.
Yeah, the timeline, all the phases of the process, that's where we'll post the leadership profile report, et cetera. So that one stop you can point everyone to. Excellent.
So you'll be working with Peter to do that instead of us doing it?
Yes,
Right.
that would be great. unless you have
I
any.
know, I heard the relief for you, like, I just want to clarify.
Yeah, again, the board's role is to give them the big picture, and then the liaison's role is to, can it be a Thursday or does it have to be a Tuesday? Like, the board doesn't need to decide that. And then it's really, the logistics end up in the superintendent's office for, which rooms are we gonna have the meetings in? Where are they gonna be? Who's gonna be, which group is gonna go first? Oh, it's not convenient for the PTA at 5 PM, they really want 7, whatever. All of that logistics, you don't have to worry about.
Okay, item number 7, this is just a service we offer for you, and we're going to be gathering data, and John's so good at this. John, do you want to jump in on salary benefit data?
Sure, yeah, so we found that the most reliable method to give you some data to work with, we're negotiating a contract with the superintendent to request current contract documents for a comparable set of districts, typically comparable in size, and in your case, perhaps some island districts that are similar in context as well. And then what we do is put together a detailed spreadsheet that doesn't just quantify base salary, but all the other pathways to compensation that superintendents receive on an annual basis, so that you can see what a total package value looks like. And then we show we include your most recent superintendent contract in that data set, so you kind of see where you land in the current market. And it's also a tool then we found that boards find this helpful, is that the superintendent's generally the highest paid person in the organization, so there's some public scrutiny at times around how much you do pay a superintendent. So when you have data like this, sometimes it's helpful in responding to media inquiries, for example, where they want to know, well, why are you paying this much money? And, well, here's the context. And so we provide that to you and have that prepared in advance of your selection decision, so that you're ready to hit the ground running when it comes negotiation time.
Yeah, so let us know if you have questions about that. We just, again, we act as your guide on the side during that phase of the process to assist. So much more to come on that.
So there is a requirement locally that you're supposed to advertise how much you're paying for positions. Because of the type of position, is this exempt from that, or will we need to figure that out before we post the job?
No, I think, to post it, we talk about you'll be competitive, but eventually you'll need to have a range. But we have some time to get there, so you can really look at the data and have a significant range that can account for experience and what have you. So we'll talk more about that. Great. So items 8 and 9 are about the application process. I just want to have you thinking about, first of all, you probably remember from our proposal, we highly recommend that the process remains confidential through the first phase semi-finalists. And that's for a lot of reasons. It's really to attract your best pool. You can imagine, especially sitting superintendents who may not want to put their names out there unless they're a serious finalist candidate. That's one reason. And so we strongly recommend that it's really held very closely, board only, through the semifinalist phase. We will be collecting information on all the applicants. We'll look at this posting in a minute, but there's 6 components to their application, right? It's their cover letter, resume, it's the online application form, a very thorough HYA online application form, 3 letters of recommendation. So those 6 components make up that candidate's application file. Our firm believes that the board needs to see every single completed application. right? We don't do an initial screen and say, we're gonna forward this slate of candidates for you. We really want you to look at every completed. And I know it's a little more homework, but
We would prefer that.
important, okay, good. Good, but what we do is to help you think about these candidates' qualifications, readiness, right, experience, in terms of tiers. So tier 1 candidates are highly qualified, all the experience, tightly aligned to the leadership profile report, for instance. You know, tier 2 might have some gaps, but seem qualified. Tier 3, probably some red flags, or major gaps, or we discovered some things along the journey. So we will give you a spreadsheet of, let's just say, 20-some applicants, and we'll have those tiered with all the data in one spreadsheet at a glance for you as well. That will help with your homework.
So Chris, when I talked to the chair of South Whitby,
Yes.
way back, he said the thing that he liked the very most about search was that it was blind.
Oh,
And
right.
I think that's brilliant, because what it takes, it eliminates any inherent bias that we all carry with us. So I assume we'll be getting the data about the background of these people without the gender or the name or the age.
Yes, and yes, and yes, if that's what you
I mean,
choose.
this is what
And
I-
where they work.
So, it's a process that we've used in several districts by the request of the board. It's a blind screening. And really, it's a 2-tiered process for the board, because eventually you're going to need to look at it.
Oh, of course.
Right?
Of course.
But you do want to check for bias. So you might remember we said we would be offering an interview workshop for you, and part of that would be anti-bias, you know, in interview processes. And there's a lot of ways that we're going to help you scrub for that. But that's a great, thank you for bringing that up. It's a decision point for you, and if you choose that, we just adjust our documents for you so that you can do a first level screen blind, second level screen with all the data. More to come. Thank you for doing that.
Okay, thank you.
So speaking of the confidentiality, if we could just have you look at the last page in the packet, that is a confidentiality agreement that we asked the board to sign just to review interview processes and how important this is. And if you see anything that concerns you on that form, let us know, but it's a pretty straightforward, typical, I won't be sharing anything I learned. It's no different than what you do in executive sessions, really. So John will send out an email that you can just click on if you've acknowledged it, if you're okay with that. But let us know if anything jumps out at you that is concerning. We just want to cover our bases too, that anybody dealing with this data is filled out. Questions about that?
It's only the 5 board members, even though you have a lot of signature lines. Is that
That's
correct?
right. That's right. Now, once we get to finalists, right, you will be typically opening it up, back open to everybody. You want everyone to re-engage at that point, right? Staff, students, families, the greater community. We want to meet these finalists. Let's say there are 3. That would be typical. So that's when we re-engage everyone. So we want to be really clear when we're talking about this. If it's just up through semifinalists, and here's why we keep it confidential. Because you say we're transparent in the process, but it's confidential through semifinalists. So just making sure people understand the distinction. So a lot more to come on how your finalist process could look when they visit the district. The position announcement, we'll hold that for just a minute as well, because we'll spend a few more minutes on that in just a moment. If we could go to number 11 on page 6. and I'm gonna call on John again. Sylvia is our note taker, so I'm trying not to call on Sylvia, but John, do you want to talk about advertising options?
Certainly, yeah. So with the advertising you see here, we cover Washington State thoroughly, primarily through WASDA and WASDA. Those are the two channels candidates are looking at most closely. Nationally, our HYU website has become a clearinghouse that's included in the fee. And we get 25,000 hits on that website a month, so there's plenty of traffic there. The company also has a Facebook account, an account in LinkedIn, and they post routinely all of the positions in K-12 job spots, so that's why you see all that there. We do have additional national advertising packages that are available. Some of them get rather spendy, and so our experience has been really there's only one slice of that that we recommend to you, assuming that you want to encourage a diverse candidate pool, including candidates who have historically been represented in leadership positions. And so there is an option for you to purchase that slice of advertising with Hollis and NAPSI, and including that over at FQE.
I think it's 800.
I think it's $850, yeah, $850 that buys you 6 weeks on the Hollis job board and a month on the NAPSI board. Money well spent in our opinion, but it is an optional.
So ALAS is the Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents, and NAPSI, National Association of Black School Educators. And ALAS, we know, has a local state chapter as well, so we try to dial into those organizations, and it's really been well received and reaches an underrepresented market oftentimes. So it's up to you if you want to think about that as well.
I know it's a difficult decision. Again, that's something I value in your presentation, in those organizations, and having witnessed the impact of that in hiring at other institutions. Just for myself, I feel like it's a critical value for national scope for equity.
I have a feeling we're going to find that we have consensus on that. Yeah. It's one of the things that I really liked about Hyatt is that you got this option for a much lower cost and a high quality. But I think this is going to end up being a consensus decision. And just knowing us.
Okay, great, we'll wait to hear from you on that. Again, we've got a little bit of time.
You did.
You just
Oh,
did.
I
just did.
Yeah, you
All
just
right.
did.
I didn't see all heads
Okay,
shake.
great.
That was the
Okay.
majority either way.
Yeah, that is the majority.
Okay, great, thank you for that direction. Internal candidates, don't know if you may or may not have any, but we would recommend, as you can see, that they go through the same process as any other applicant. It's really in the candidate's best interest too. We've seen it when they try to short circuit for internal candidates, and it can just backfire. So it's cleaner if internal and external are going to be the same. If you have a different opinion, please let us know.
No, we don't.
Okay.
I can tell you, we've already discussed
Okay,
that.
okay.
And I'm assuming that adheres to the same confidentiality.
Yes,
Mhm.
fully, yes. And then, this is really repetitive, but we just want to, again, think about, most districts do these two-tiered process of interviews, semifinalists and then finalists. There has been occasion when the board wants to either speed it up or, maybe the pool is a little more shallow than we had hoped, and you jump right to finalists. But at this point, we'd be recommending the two-tiered semifinalists first, and that would be usually about 6 candidates, where the board spends a day, about an hour per candidate, right? And then invites back the finalists, again, typically 3, right? Any questions, comments?
But just step back, the board
board has an opportunity with HYA to, when we go through all of the applications, that takes about how much time, and then they come up with their finalists, and then that's a full day that you would vote to this
That's right.
finalist. So I'm just trying to
So
help
you're
them
figuring
get a
out
sense
3
of their
days,
time.
3 full days on the semifinals?
One full day on Sunday. And that's why when we get to the calendar, I added in the estimated time.
Okay.
So we'll get to that in just a moment.
Okay.
But yes, semifinalists, well, let's back up. When you're screening the files, and we're helping you to sort through who should you invite, those first 6 or 7, that can be 2.5, 3 hours-ish, and we put that in the calendar. Full day for
confidential.
semifinalists. Pardon?
They're completely confidential,
Confidential.
or an executive session, just the board.
Executive session, just the board, strictly confidential. Then you're going to invite from there 3, or sorry, at that point it's 6-ish, 5 to 7, wherever your cut line is. And that's really a day's commitment. Now, we're flexible, whatever day or weekend works for you. Or if it's an afternoon and into the late evening, whatever works for you, but we do need about 6 hours probably.
So I was thinking, just that this came to mind. I know that some of the candidates from other districts that you have worked with have candidates coming from other states. So my guess is that probably at least the semifinalists would be on the weekend that would allow, if people are flying in. Let's say you are a superintendent that doesn't really want your district to know you're flying to the most beautiful state in the country.
And the most beautiful district in the country.
So is it usually on the weekends?
No, not necessarily, but whatever works best for you. If a superintendent's looking for a new position, they're really fly.
Well, and semifinalists, I would assume that's Zoom or something. I'm assuming semifinals are not in person.
No, it's in person.
It's, since COVID, it's so important that you meet
Yeah,
them.
and you've got to do all or none, right? Because it's an unfair disadvantage, right, if you're one way or the other.
And
I
then,
think the island means that the island is having the semifinalists come in and make sure they actually want to go to the finalists, because I do understand that previous superintendent searches ended up with a drop at the last minute for similar, they didn't know the island.
yeah.
Or the expense. I know in my previous district, there were finalists that chose not to go to the next step, even though they were invited, because they realized it was a very expensive place to live.
Hopefully they're doing that homework way in advance before you invite them, so we will be working with them on that.
I was just, so if, I know we've gone over this before, but I wanted to just ask, at this point then, if the semifinalist point, do they fly at their expense? And then at the finalist point, do we offer for the last, is that how that works?
Well, we can give you typical.
Yeah,
But every
typical is-
district is unique there too, and we actually have that item coming up.
Oh,
Let's talk about it, it's next.
All right.
It would be typical that candidates cover their own expenses up through semifinals. It would also be typical that boards want to acknowledge some reimbursement for finalists, but that varies very much. Let's say there's 3 finalists, you've all agreed to help offset their costs, but up to a cap of something, right? 1,000, 1,500, with all receipts, making sure, oh, your business person left. So, right, what's reimbursable based on your policies. However, you would set the cap, and that really means a lot to candidates too. That says that you really value their commitment that they've invested. So you can also think about that. We've got lots of time before we need to get to that decision, but great question.
The timeline, one of the things I appreciated in your presentation was an awareness and consideration of the fact that being on the early end of this gives us a stronger pool. And
Yes.
so, in academia, the top candidates are taking their positions early, and if you're behind, if you're even a little bit behind 2 or 3 weeks, you can lose great
Exactly.
candidates who've otherwise committed. So how is the schedule lining up with that consideration?
You are going to be out front, you probably are gonna be the first one posted, I'm hoping, this is my goal. Other than Seattle, which has been out there for a while, right?
I don't think the same candidates are necessarily.
You are clearly in the first wave, and when we talk about it, we think that there's like 3 waves of superintendent openings. You are on the front end of the first wave, so highly ideal for you to get out soon, and we want to get it on the street as soon as
If
possible.
you follow through on their timeline here, and you have a February appointment, that gives that candidate and your interim superintendent a ton of time to collaborate.
So we just have a couple more like logistics to check off, and then let's dive into that calendar if we could. So really, background checks on page 7 is really something for you to also think about. We've got time. You might recall from the proposal, we are doing our investigation throughout the recruitment and process, right? We're doing our one-on-one meetings with these candidates. We meet with every single one, John and Sylvia and I, asking pointed questions, including the question, is there anything in your background, should it become public, would be of concern to this board? Okay, we need to get that out on the table as soon as possible.
So what are you asking? Are you asking what would our concerns be, or getting it out for
If there's
them?
anything of concern in their background,
Okay.
Their
speak
Their
now.
background.
Speak now. We have had, on occasion, that, of course, a media story, you don't serve in these roles without being exposed to all kinds of media and tough decisions that they've had to make, right, that we've had to make. But if it's something that needs a story behind it, right, it needs an explanation, we invite those candidates to submit a statement that we can include for you that further describes it. Last thing we want to do is be surprised. Last thing we want to is to be surprised by an article or an allegation of some sort. So we're digging deep. We're meeting with each one. But the third-party background check for your finalists, either your final 3 or just your finalists, is strongly recommended, right? They can dig far deeper in media, social media, criminal checks, university verifications of degrees, That report is about a 40-page report. Credit history, we don't have access, that kind of thing. So you can think about it. Again, it's optional, $1,900-ish, but with early coverage, so we can come back to that too later. Are you comfortable not doing any, or would you like to do your top 3, or just your top 1? And that can be decided later.
Yeah, I think that's something well down the line.
Yes.
And does background include speaking to the current board, assuming they're currently in the superintendent role? Because we found that doesn't always happen.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You do that.
We didn't, we are doing that, reference checking.
That's part of that.
Deep reference checking. And what we find in those reference checks ends up on your spreadsheet. Right, when you're doing that initial.
Yeah, the
Who do we
background
wanna
check
invite?
that Chris is talking about, that's $1,900, is the huge, like, everything gets turned over. But the
routine reference check and, verification and all that, that's all part of their process already, right?
Yes.
And then, again, past experience, it was the final list that the board invested that one time, then to do all of the.
That was my next question. So it's like $200 per head, correct?
But again, most districts would probably be choosing just their top candidate. Because it takes about 7 to 10 days to get the report back. And you're gonna be negotiating a contract during that time anyway. You need a couple of weeks typically to negotiate the contract, so then we can see if there's anything of concern in that final report. Okay, couple others, sorry, on page 7. Residency,
We do
especially
have
for you.
expectations.
I didn't know if it was written in the
Yeah,
contract.
it's written into the
Okay,
contract.
then that's easy, right? Thank you.
Do you give it a time frame? Like, is it within a year or?
I think the policy says
Yeah, I think, I'd have to check.
We'll look it
I
up.
thought it was.
Yeah.
Let's look it up, that would be great.
I think it's short, but that's just, yeah, I think it's 6 months.
And moving expenses and their comp and benefits, if it's not in there, they may request that as part of their negotiations. We just kind of think about that.
it's not in there.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
It's not there right now, but when we were discussing the other options, that when we went through and pulled that for
Right. So we can talk about that, whether you want it in policy or their contract, time to think about it.
And just a foreshadowing, and not in depth, but are there other aspects of compensation that might be unusual, but not infrequent, that we are maybe not thinking about that might be requested? And I realize that's much further down the line when we get to negotiations, but I'm just curious if there are one or two things that immediately come to mind.
Yeah, that's what John had mentioned. That's again, another spreadsheet for you to take a look at. What's kind of current language that's out there in superintendent contracts, or is there a trend that has been emerging in language that they're asking for X or Y?
And then 1 year
Professional
mental health
development, exactly.
and it will live in the district.
Okay, and finally is just the board portal, and you might remember that also from our proposal. It's just a handy tool, and John, can I call on you again? Just a quick reference to the board portal and how they'll
Sure,
get
yeah.
access?
It's basically an online space where we can not only include the calendar we're about to go through, but artifacts from the search, as we finalize the initial position advertisement, and we'll post that. We'll post links to the postings and all those different places we talked about in terms of advertising, so you can click on them easily and view them if you want to see what they look like out there. It's basically a 24/7 place for the board members only to go and confidentially review things at their leisure on their schedule. We'll also, when we ask you to give us some input, we often use the portal as the place to go find the tools or resources that we're wanting you to review and considering your input for any piece. An example would be when we get to the select phase, we're going to have a bank of sample interview questions for you across several superintendent domains, some of which will come right from your leadership profile. And then we'll also invite you, if you want to create custom questions of your own, to submit those. But that's in advance of that interview workshop, so that's all something you'll see at the portal.
John, can you just share with the board the issue around public records and access by the public to any of those documents?
Sure, yeah, and I'll give the disclaimer ahead of time that I am not an attorney, but I think we're all well aware in Washington that there's public records statutes that delineate what can be disclosed and what can't. So, for example, we will be placing the application materials there as well. There are many pieces of that that will not be and cannot be disclose for obvious reasons. But there are some pieces that you'll see there that while access to that portal is not provided to anybody else, if somebody was to make a information request, we would have to work with you and your legal counsel to determine the response.
Yeah, because that just becomes your one-stop repository for everything about the search, just to make it easier for you. So, more to come on that. John will be sending you just an invite of how to access that portal once we get underway. So. Okay, if we go back to page 2, obviously we're launching as of tonight, and we're very excited about that. We'll take a look at the position announcement draft in just a second. But we would love to schedule one-on-ones with each of you ASAP. Again, our preference would be in person, but if we could just do those via Zoom or Google Meet in the next few weeks, that would be wonderful. So best to work through Joe
Board's
here,
call.
or just reach out to you directly and try to land on a date that works.
I think that's most efficient, just
Okay.
reach out to us.
Will do. We need just probably 45 minutes, 60 max, but it's just a chance to hear from you individually.
Yeah, so, and just check your number on your contact, make sure it's accurate. Your email and phone
Yes.
number. Actually, where are your offices?
Pardon me?
You said in person, you're Zoom, where are your offices?
Well, we work out of our homes. I'm in Marysville. John is Puyallup, splits his time with Tucson sometimes. Sylvia is in Texas. So a little hard for us sometimes to get somewhere in person, but yeah. Our main office is in all of our associates across the country working from their homes. Yeah. So we will think about September and October for engagement, as you can see at the top of page 3. The interviews, focus groups, forums, we want to get all those scheduled so we can start hearing from people and launch the survey, which sounds like you're meaning for the Google survey, but we'll look back for sure. And then all of that will lead into that leadership profile report that we hope to present to you in November. Oh, just look as we go. And we are committed to providing search updates at your standing board meetings if you'd like us to. We can do 8 minutes, we can do 12 or 15, but it's that transparency, making sure your public at large knows what's going on.
And-
You'd like us to.
And we could do that via Zoom with
Yes.
you folks?
Yeah.
November 13th.
That's marvelous.
So the November meeting, November 13th.
Okay.
There is an October 23rd meeting. Early October, you're going to be off in Seattle.
Yeah.
And November, there's only one meeting. So if
Okay.
you want to do, if you're doing an update, it would be October 23rd.
Okay, excellent.
And
And
13,
November 13th?
you said November 13.
Right, but if they want to do an update prior, it would be October 23rd. Because they have 2 dates.
We should have called.
Just can't mess with Halloween and fashion.
Oh, it's pretty
Okay.
special.
Well, it's like a huge deal.
Okay.
I'm right, it's October.
be prepared.
Yeah.
So we're proposing then that the position closes in early January. That's also ideal. It gives also the candidates the winter break to finalize their materials. And superintendent candidates are notorious for waiting until the last lap. So we could pick a particular date.
What's the January board dates?
I think
Yeah,
that
there's a work session.
January 22nd.
And that's will
Work
that work
session.
for the presentation of candidates?
Presentation of candidates in exec session?
Yes.
Yeah.
On the 22nd.
Yep. Position should, again, I don't want to get into the board's business,
Yeah.
but right after the break would be a good time for it to close. So early, the first week of January.
Mhm.
If we just pick a Friday that works, are you all fine
Oh, I
with
think
that?
so, yeah.
Okay,
So
absolutely.
Friday, January,
Well, this is not the first.
not the
Right.
first.
Right.
Friday, oh, well, Friday, January 2nd or Friday, January 9th? January 9th? Okay. So position closes January 9th.
Okay, sold.
Yeah.
Can you give us an update with the dates on it, please?
Yeah, we'll be redoing these notes from our meeting tonight and get them back out to you. This just comes back out to you with all the decision points and get that out.
The January date of the 22nd, they have a board meeting. And then you have on here, late January, the 5 to 7 candidates. Would you have enough time, I'm sorry to be logistics with you
No,
here,
please,
but
you know
would
this.
you have enough time for, to get everybody together and do like a full day on Thursday, the 29th?
Okay, from the presentation of the candidates and then giving the candidates enough time to
Yeah, I don't
make travel arrangements.
Because you might have to back stuff up if you're looking at the February date. That's why I'm kind of trying to get dates on the calendar.
Right.
Can we do Thursday, if it's a Thursday, can we do afternoon, or I just have to go for.
It doesn't have to be a Thursday. I just was trying to give them a week, right? It could be the following Monday or Tuesday. That,
Yeah, I think that would work, but we may need some time to talk, and we could finalize it in the next week or so. I appreciate that, Joe.
yeah, I'm just trying to, because by late February, they're taking,
Yeah.
mid-February, you're taking action.
Right.
By early February, actually, it says.
Yeah, early. With finalists in the district. So we'll try to nail down those semifinalists.
Right, because don't you in the announcement usually say, you know, semifinalist interviews are thus and such a date, and then the following whatever date, yeah.
Now, the other question though is, just because the school board meeting is set on January 22nd, it doesn't mean that we could have a different meeting
You
earlier.
could, you absolutely could,
And
because
that
it's
might be-
executive session.
Yeah, I mean, we can call an executive session at any time. So
Yeah.
wouldn't it make more sense if we're in this tight deadline to back this up to maybe, I don't know. I mean,
Absolutely.
January 15th or whatever?
That's up to you. Can you pull together candidates by then, Chris?
Yeah, we just, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so if it closed the 9th, you could do something like,
They need a week's notice.
like the 15th?
Well, you are gonna be.
The
looking
exec
at the
session we're
candidates.
talking about. So the 9th it closes.
Then you're gonna look at candidates.
Right, so the board can do that any day as an
Mhm.
exec session. So what kind of
We
time
only
frame do you need?
need, we only need about 3 or 4 days, right, John, Sylvia? To
Yeah,
put
we can make that work.
all the materials together to be ready for you to review.
So the January 14th or 15th?
Okay, let's look at calendar, what day, kind of day? is
14th
it?
is a Wednesday, 15th is Thursday.
For me, my life is easy, other than folks.
And you could do an evening, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Put it on the books now.
Huh?
But January 17th, put it on the books now.
And let me be clear, the part that we're scheduling right here is,
Presentation of candidates.
So, yeah, an evening and
3
it's
hours.
just the board.
Mm-hmm. In an exec session.
3 hours.
The 14th? How about?
it's fine, it is
uh,
fine.
Yeah,
Enough
the
to be able to-
afternoon.
Yeah,
If it's the afternoon, after 2 p.m. anytime.
Yeah, but January 7th.
okay, then let's say
The
14th.
14th after 2.
After 2, yeah. Okay, so then it fits to do the semifinalists whenever that works. It doesn't have to be a board meeting date, because they're gonna do a full day of interviews.
Hey, Peter, you keeping up with these dates to send us all the Google advice letters?
I'm writing it.
So we would have the exec session on the 14th, and then there's a regular school board meeting on the 22nd, correct?
There is, but your semifinalist interviews are separate from the board meeting.
Right,
And you need a full day.
Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to get a sense of time.
Yes.
Candidates need time, right?
Yeah,
Once you
they do
call
too.
them, so. I don't know, all day on the 21st, a week later? So do you want to make it a full-on day on the 22nd and then go right into a board meeting because you don't want to be out that many days? It's up to you all.
Or the last week of January.
I want to do it as soon as we can, because I just don't want to mess around with this. I want us to be first. I just gotta say,
Well, what you
I
need
wanna-
to, if you want to do that, then
Competitive
you
streak.
book yourselves for this day-long meeting of interviewing semifinalists. Pick the date now and clear your calendar if that works for you.
I think it would be nice to go to that board meeting without a little update.
Yep.
So if we do it before that board meeting, that would be ideal.
So-
How do
so-
you feel about,
At what time would that
It would have to be.
It
it's
has
an
to be all day.
It has
Can
to
that be on a Friday, chance?
So it's the 21st.
There's 23rd is Friday.
I think you could, I mean, the
Sure,
update
why
could be
not?
on the 22nd, but that's what's happening next day.
Yeah.
So January 23rd for your,
Or it could be Saturday.
I can't do that, sorry.
Friday's fine.
Okay.
So we're holding Friday, the 23rd. So that's. So finalists, are you ready to move on to
Yeah.
finalists? So again, from the semi, you're going to invite 3, let's say. And you can see on the notes, you could do full day, all on the same day. It's been a trend, and I could talk to you about the pros and cons. Historically, it would be 1 day per candidate. And boards, it's just a matter of a preference.
What are the pro, obviously, all in one day gets it out of, all done. The con, as far as I can see, is that you might just be totally running before the last candidate, and you might not be thinking as clearly.
And
Yeah.
at this level, they're interviewing us as much as we're interviewing them.
Yes.
And so to me, one of the stress points about having all of the candidates on one day is that I feel like it affects your ability to kind of reach and be gracious and create a little bit of space and give in their day so they have a moment to breathe. I am concerned about constituent groups then showing up for consistency, but
I think with that as unique as our island is, in all directions, the better view we can give those final candidates of what life here would actually look like, since that is a requirement that they live here. Doing one per day would be a much better option to give them the actual view and time to view the specialness of where we live.
you can also do the traditional, like, board takes, it's a lot for you guys because it would be 3 nights in a row, but you take each candidate to a meal, you know, kind of just.
You guys
sit
don't want
with
to
them.
stay here after they try things, right? Or any of one of the other guys.
And since, I mean, again, the opposite was true up north. They wanted to do it all in one day, so it was the same constituents, and they filed them in, filed them out, and that was not, when I was in the process of superintendent search, I had a whole day. And they toured me around the island, and I got a couple different meals with different groups, and then a board dinner, and then I had to present that evening to, and I was wiped by the end of it. But again, that could be a superintendent's day. And so you actually get to see somebody under stress as well as in a relaxed scenario. So again, I was converted the last time because you guys did it all in one day, and I'm like, oh, I guess that's a good thing, but.
Yeah, the only considerations, again, back to your point, Martha, are making sure that it's a comparable experience, right?
Right.
And it's a lot to ask of your community to come out 3 nights, you know, making sure that they can weigh in on all 3, let's just say it's 3. Impact to the school day, to if they're touring school buildings, and that sort of thing. But again, there's no perfect model. There's trade-offs.
So
whichever way.
we can wait on this,
Yes.
because I'd like a take from our sort of teams as well, you know. We're not, if the tours are of the schools, then that has an impact. I just want some feedback besides us.
That's a great idea, but sooner the better to nail it down. Why don't we think about it being the first week of February though?
Oh, you mean in
Even
terms
if
of that?
it's not, if it's 1 day or 3,
Yeah, that would be fun.
because they're going to be the 23rd,
Yeah, so February
It's
2
a-
to 6.
over a week notice. John, did you want to weigh in on that?
I was just gonna suggest it, with the possibility of 3 days, we lock down 3 days at this point, just reserve. And then if the input leads you to 1 day, we can get rid of it.
Yeah, it's a good idea
Yeah,
too.
let's do that.
So for 3, 4, 5 maybe?
So, I was looking, there's in February, if I'm reading this calendar correctly, there isn't any school on the 12th, nor then the week of 16th to the 20th.
That's their vacation.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, I know, that's why I wanted to
First
double
week
check
is
that, where
important.
we
Yeah,
are.
so it's 3, 4, 5 is where.
Yeah.
Do you have any early release days in your schedule?
Late arrivals on Fridays, but 2, 3, 4 that week, I don't think there's anything, 3, 4, 5. 3, 4, 5, I don't think so.
So with the board?
Nothing, there's nothing that
Spend the
week.
whole day.
Not necessarily, and we could talk about your involvement. You'll have a standing board interview, that's a great question. And it may lead right into your dinner, for instance. But some board members do want to shadow the candidates throughout the day. So it's
You
it's up
may
to
show
you.
them around,
Or-
close to them is what I heard.
You could do
Not-
that. You could do that too. So we'll fine tune all those details, yeah. But the mandatory kind of meeting would be the interview with the board in the evening typically.
So we can alternate that and then everybody all day.
Okay, so it sounds like we're holding 3, 4, 5 for now, and if we
Sounds good.
choose to go with the 1 day model. Good suggestion, John.
Now, could we, I mean, I don't know if this is a good idea, tie it to the 4, 5, 6, which is Friday, and if someone wants to stay longer for the weekend, just enjoy it. As an island travel, I don't know, just thinking, if they're not be here, they may extend their traveling, I don't know when that happens.
I think you're gonna get the best out of people Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Nobody wants to be doing stuff on a Friday evening. So you're asking a candidate to go to dinner with you on a Friday night, and
When you're asking the community to show up every
Right,
Friday
yeah.
night.
yeah.
So
You're
3,
gonna
4,
get-
and 5 is Wednesday.
Yeah. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
That's when you get the first Friday and the holidays are around here.
Yeah, you don't want to have them have to deal with the ferry on a Friday either,
Oh, yeah.
even in February.
Not really sure we're ready to show the first Fridays on that.
Did you have something else, John?
Sorry.
Did you have something else, John?
Yeah, we often see finalists come
Oh,
before their interview day and spend a couple of days looking around, investigating housing. Pretty common.
we're making great progress. So we wanted to transition to the draft position announcement, which
Yes.
is,
And Chris wanted to say, I don't know if I emailed you back, but I did read your email, and I thought, I don't want to be the only one emailing you, so that's why you didn't.
no worries. And go ahead, Dr. Jesse.
Well, I have a question that I'm not sure you can answer at this point, and it would be speculative because this would be the first year that's impacting it. But it's been impacting higher ed for a bit, which is kind of political landscape of the country. I have colleagues who are leaving states, you know, long-term tenure in states. And we're looking at the states that are passing kind of political litmus tests for teachers in those states and other pieces. And I'm wondering if y'all have any sense of how that might impact this search in terms of superintendents who might feel constrained by that. Do you anticipate an increase in the pool or any of those pieces? Because that's what I see happening in education, and also what's happening in the Department of Education, is people wanting to move places where they have a little more autonomy. And I don't know if y'all are looking at that.
Well, I think we've been pleasantly surprised with schools the last couple of years. We weren't sure what to expect after COVID, but people still are willing to do this really hard work, and we're thankful.
Crazy, isn't it?
I think Washington is very attractive, given, the landscape. Western Washington is very attractive, given the landscape. And so it's just we think that you are in a great position, not only your timing of the search, but just your location, your reputation, all of that.
You have to be cognizant of if you hire from out of state, you have to double down on your metric, because Washington is different than other states, right? A unionized state versus some people come from unionized states, they don't have the financials and the way they work in Washington different than other states. So there's no reason not to. You just have to really focus your efforts on how you're going to measure your person.
So we drafted a position announcement for your consideration, just again, with some typical language. There are some decision points in here. You could see the distinction between minimum qualifications and preferred, right? And we want you to, think about that. We certainly need to add the residency, which we'll do. But if you haven't had a chance to take a look at it yet, then we want you to just sit with it for a while. We're hoping to get this, though, posted by, if we can do Tuesday because of the holiday weekend, that would be great. And I know Peter's working on some draft language for about the district and about the community. If you have any suggestions about those two paragraphs, just let him know. Because again, this is your recruiting language, that why is it such a wonderful place to live and work and learn?
And I'm going to throw in right here, and stop me, folks, if you think this is off base. Since each one of us have a very specific sort of Vashon Island in our heads, just like everybody who lives here, my husband always said, we come to be an island to invent our own reality, and I think that's really true. If we give you or send something to Peter, I want it to be really clear that you folks are the experts on whether it's relevant or whether it makes any sense, or whether it is useful. So I guess what I'm saying is, please, we expect editing, okay?
How about if they send it all to Peter?
Can we just send it to Peter?
Peter and I will put together a nice little
Okay,
blurb
good.
in there. That's all
The
we
only
can-
reason I didn't do it already is I didn't just want my idea to be the one. Yeah, go ahead.
Just reviewing what you have on the minimum qualifications and then the preferred one. It doesn't, it suggests real strength in terms of the administrative qualities and the leadership qualities there. I'm not seeing, we're looking at aspects that indicate experience as an educator on the ground, and I'm wondering what the thinking is there, because to me, when I read this, it suggests someone who went through an administrative track all the way through without ever being an educator, without ever being in a classroom or superintendent, so I'm just curious thoughts about that.
Yeah, to be a district, to be a school leader, it requires teaching experience, but you can call that out as important to you.
I think that
Maybe a
is
minimum number of years, but you can think about that. Classroom experience is important to you, that,
I can't imagine that it isn't important. I mean, not only is it required, but I think that if
You
we
wouldn't have
don't,
hired me then.
well, you taught.
I was a school psychologist.
Yeah, but that's boots on the ground and you
Different,
saw
you know,
other
different.
kids.
then
I
how
mean,
you phrase it,
yeah,
whether
how you
it's
phrase it.
teaching experience or.
Would I be correct in saying it's also important to remember that this is how we get our pool of candidates? This is not how we decide on our candidates. So the questions that we ask, like, how long did you teach? Or where did you start? We can ask those questions, but that's not going to slim down our pool if we get really specific in who we're looking for to apply.
Smart.
This is the application, not the final.
But is school experience even important to you? Remember that in the state of Washington, it's not required to be a superintendent, right? You don't need superintendent certification even.
But you need that to be a school administrator, which you have here.
Right, this leans heavily on school-based experience, right? A district we did recently wanted to lean heavily the other way. Let's not limit our pool at all. You know that there's examples of people who've come up through the business ranks, military, and have no school experience.
I would be inclined, not with the complications of finance and all the things that would be for me like a red flag, you know, I'm just saying.
It's rare.
Yeah,
That's the opposite end of the
Yeah.
spectrum.
I guess I would think, school psychologists or teachers, that there's something to me, and I may be wrong, but if I were an educator in the district, that would invite a different level of trust for me, knowing that someone had been in the building, not solely in the administrative position. And I may be wrong, and so I would love to hear from you, but in terms of their thoughts.
Well, we're hearing that school experience, however we phrase it, is important, which is good to hear. We also wonder if,
And that doesn't have to be under the minimum, I mean, given to your point, which I thought was a great point, it could be under preferred, but it's somehow signaling that
right,
as a priority, because
is superintendent certification a priority
Not to me,
even? So,
no.
Certification?
I mean, in terms of.
Joe, what are your thoughts on that?
I was surprised when I got to Washington and I didn't need to be certified to be superintendent. I was surprised. Again, I'm biased, I'll tell you off the bat. I do think that people need to work in schools in some capacity. Do they need to be a classroom teacher? Not necessarily. But I also think that, there are probably people out there who can do a good job as superintendent, who not. But you're right, if you want to engender trust, you want people who see themselves in their leader, whatever that means.
I can say that in the 33 years I taught, two of what whom I consider to be great superintendents were not certified. So I wouldn't want to close that off.
I mean, you could say that they have to get it over a certain period of time, too. I mean,
That's
isn't there?
listed as a willingness to obtain, so that's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, that's there, yeah. But I mean, I wouldn't want to close the door to a candidate who is really strong without that certification.
But also a preferred background in education.
Mhm.
It doesn't know, look, I still apply for jobs with preferred things I don't know, but it doesn't mean I'm not gonna apply.
It's one of those traditional biases. that women traditionally don't. If they're not fully qualified, they don't apply.
Really?
Yeah, men will apply, like, they say if there's 10 qualifications and men have 2, they'll apply, but if women don't have 11, they won't apply. I read that
Seem to have the
research.
male background.
Yeah, I gotta say that was not
That's just
Really?
the study that was
That's
done, I don't know.
interesting. I can believe it.
I
totally
think,
believe it.
to your point, Jess, this is to get people to apply. They're not necessarily gonna look at this and say, oh, the people are gonna say superintendent Vashon, they're gonna look at Vashon. You're gonna get a pool of candidates that look at the place and just assume they're qualified,
I
right?
just would always rather have 50 candidates and choose 6 than 5 candidates and not be able to choose 6.
Our work is really about making this as attractive as possible. So,
And the doctoral degree, is it important to you or not? Right now, it's just listed under preferred, is it even preferred for you? So those are the fine tune, maybe over the next week or so, you could think about it and just fine tune so that we can get this out.
just don't do a reply at all, send me your thoughts, I'll compile them and we'll put together an application.
Does that work for everybody?
Yep.
Are you just working on the deadline? When jobs are posted, sometimes it's a hard deadline, sometimes it's a, deadline, but who's again reviewing applications at night, or you hard deadline?
Yeah, we have had a hard deadline for these searches because we're just confident we're going to get a good pool. Rather than a rolling, especially for this high level position, you need a hard stop and have you look at everything available at once.
I also need a superintendent. Can we meet deadlines, please?
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
You also, you have
I don't
a
want one that
couple
applies 2
of,
days later.
I didn't really see it, but it happened in my last experience, the WASD conference gives you opportunities, people may talk to you, they can talk to me. People will call me, I guarantee it. And so that also is advertising. So if we get this common application down, you'll have language. And they'll talk to you.
And then, this is not for you, Chris, but for us, I'd like to figure out a process on how we decide on number 2 for Tuesday, right? On who else is going to be the communicator for the board.
Yeah, so
So-
that would be helpful because we
And
want
I'd
to
like
start
to,
them.
yeah. So we need some,
I know we done.
Can you
first.
I agree, we should make that decision.
yeah, we need to make that decision tonight.
We've covered a lot of territory, thank you all so
Thank
much.
you.
You still have some decision points,
Yes.
but we've got some time for some of them. We would appreciate some of those ASAP so we can get it out on the streets next week. So we're looking forward to this journey
So-
with you.
Tuesday, getting it to you by Tuesday, the final
Final.
points on the applicant, yep, and a board liaison, that would be
Okay,
great.
so let's go over before Chris leaves our commitments, just so that we all know what our commitments are really pressing commitments.
Your present commitment right now is figure out the liaison and send any comments before the weekend's out
Yep.
to Peter and I for what you want to make sure are included. And Tuesday, he and I will put together this application and get it to Chris so they can get it on the street.
Okay,
The rest, we've got some decision points as we go along. Nothing else is urgent.
all right, thank you.
Possible, just because I want to make sure we're all on the same page, to get a summary, not right now, of the dates that we
Yeah.
agreed on.
Yeah, they're gonna
We're
do
gonna
that.
do our notes, put it right back in this format and get it back out. So Peter, you don't have to do.
Change them all the while.
So thank you all,
Thank you.
John and Sylvia, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, very, very much, Chris, for coming out.
Thank you very much. You still have business tonight?
Oh, yeah.
According to the rules, since we are.
We wanna get you on the boat, so get yourself moving, 8:05.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do that right, yeah, I just don't want to hold Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Chris. So now,
8:20, I think, not 8:05, sorry.
Okay.
Got it.
You got
Not too bad.
okay, so, We need to decide on a second person. I'll be just right up front. I'd be happy to do it if you would like me to. But I do not want to stand in the way of anyone else who would like to have that job.
Does anybody particularly want this job? Be the liaison?
It's time, just know that it's
It is a
time.
lot of time.
I have a slight interest, but I can tell you the underbelly that is bigger to me is, it's really making sure there's a link of communication. Because when I know, and even if it's just, if we talk about the weekly email updates or something, even if it is just knowing like there was email communication, you know, even just like we're going into this meeting, a reminder, X and X I've talked with or met with, or this or that, just like a bullet point reminder, so not bringing up.
What I would prefer, just because I think it works a lot better than emails that get buried, is that if I'm second one, that I would make texts to you to talk to each and every one of you, and just update you.
A text to have a phone conversation, correct? Just
Mhm.
making sure
Yeah, a
we're not
text
bringing
to
any
have a-
public record.
No,
Yeah.
and it would be one-on-one. Just simply, I don't know about you, but the number of emails we get, it's really easy to have things buried in them. I mean, I could send an email as well, but I would like to personally touch base to make sure that you all, that's
I
an
feel
update.
like that is a lot to take on top of it. Drew, do you have any guidance on maybe how it's been done in the past and how we can proceed forward in a more time efficient way?
So
What's your
Jennifer
time
has been keeping you informed of our Monday leadership
Mhm.
through the emails?
and just giving you the bullet points what we talked about.
So
Is
this
that
week
working
I
for
could-
you?
The same format, and then if you have a question, you call.
Yeah.
Does that feel?
Does that work?
I guess, because I don't think there was one this week.
I
So.
think there was.
Yeah,
Was there?
there was,
I thought
yeah.
it was last week.
I do appreciate a phone call.
Okay.
Like a pod,
Yeah.
you can do like a bullet point thing, maybe we have questions. If that's available, then.
Sure, absolutely.
I just.
And I'll be saying, she said it's weekly standing meetings, so within 24 hours, are you,
That I could do, yeah.
does that
perfect.
feel, I mean, you're always welcome to call us, we're happy to talk to you, but I
Yeah, sure.
feel like that is a lot to call 3 people.
Okay, all right, then that would be fine.
The reality of those meetings, some weeks you're gonna have nothing to report.
Mhm.
Which is kind of,
Yeah. There's just.
Which I could just send a text that says nada,
Yeah.
nada with a smiley face.
Yeah. It's not like you're gonna be doing, they're gonna keep you updated, as well.
Yeah, through the board portal.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
anyway,
like, this is not because I got a text and they acknowledges that, so I'm not underpinning, but there wasn't one this week, which is absolutely fine, but then there were a couple of things mentioned here that suggested there were communications, and so it's just a prompt for me that, having a weekly piece where it's a bullet point, and I'm with you in terms of it being onerous, all of the phone calls, and at the same time, I guess what I would say is that, to me, it could be an email with nothing to report,
Mhm.
period, weekly email. But if there was something substantive, that then the opportunity for those phone calls, because I don't think what was happening in the previous iteration with the weekly phone calls, I don't think that's efficient or healthy or this, but I do for this process,
that's
I would
fine.
appreciate
And
knowing.
I am not going to tutor this next year. I am dropping about 50% of what I do for this, because this is a lot more important. So I guess what I'm saying is I have the time, and I can also make the time. I mean,
No, I do appreciate that from you.
Well, it's,
I appreciate that.
And I move for Martha to be our next.
So, I just want to clarify, just so you know what did happen Monday, and now I know why Juniper, I'm not, I don't feel defensive, I just want you to know. All we talked about was tonight's agenda. That's why there was probably no.
Well, like I
So
said,
there
I have
should
a
have been an
text
email
saying,
that
I have a
said-
text that said, get one out, but, and so I know that awareness is there and I really appreciate it, and I guess I'm just
Okay.
saying, for this process in particular, it feels more critical to me than some of the other pieces, and so just really wanting to have that punctuated right there, but.
okay, and what we'll do is I'll speak with Juniper as well, and we'll set a specific day, and I'll let you know exactly what day and expect, and I can even tell you about what time. That's one thing, while I can't always run an Excel sheet, I do keep deadlines. That's the one thing I do.
We need to vote
Okay,
that.
let's move on.
So did you pick your liaison?
Yeah, me.
Okay. So you can let them know you're the liaison, and
Yep.
you're going to send any comments you have to the application to Peter and me
Yes.
as an individual. And we'll compile, that application and get it to them on Tuesday.
I appreciate you being willing to take on that time to
Sure.
make it.
Okay, all right, so let's move right along. Thank you all for your patience. We are now at discussion and national policy updates. Joe, you got any?
Two things came out this week. We know the funding was released, and it was confirmed that it was released by the federal government for all those title grants. There was also a court ruling that confirmed that the Dear Colleague letter issued by the Attorney General, or the Department of Ed, about DEI way back when, the court confirmed that basically it did feel like it had the impact of law, and they don't have the right to do that. And so it was a Dear Colleague letter, and that's all it is. So that was the national front, nothing new or different. There are lots of other things happening, not in our world right now.
Okay, good. An update on policy 1220?
So that's the policy that is duties of board members, and I brought that up last meeting, that it would be really helpful if the board selected it, changed its policy so that you had a warrant officer, which is someone who is willing to take on the role of meeting with the finance person at least once a month, going over warrants, pulling POs that maybe you have questions about, and just being that sort of board auditor. And would like to add that to the policy, and if that's acceptable, you might want to select a warrant officer.
Okay, so let's have some discussion about that. Is there anyone who would like to be the warrant officers?
Since I'm already meeting with Cassie on the finance, I think those two go together well. It's already pull the weird purchases and aspects,
Okay,
which is the
great,
ones.
great. More discussion on this? Do I have, this is a decision.
Is that the
So you're
only change?
deciding about, that's the only change in the policy, and so you've got
Two things on the agenda. One is to include the warrant officer, right?
One is to change the
Pass the
policy,
policy
and then
as,
decide
Then
your
to-
warrant.
Okay, so do I have a motion to include a warrant officer in the description
I believe,
in the board?
we
I would
move
suggest-
to pass policy 1220 as
Yeah,
assistant
okay.
chair.
Thank you, that'll make it a lot faster. Okay. Would you get a
Need a
motion?
second.
Need a second?
Second for the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Okay.
All opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Now, could I get a motion to appoint Jess as warrant officer?
Motion to appoint Jess as warrant officer.
Second? Ayes? Aye. Opposed? No. We have the position.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, moving right along here. Policy number 5406, leave sharing.
So this particular policy is coming from HR. It's recommended by WISD that we change our leave sharing to include folks as listed there. Leave sharing happens when an individual potentially runs out of their leave allowance, and yet they're dealing with some kind of an extraordinary issue. Other members can donate the leave that they have to another member. And this adds to those reasons for being able to ask for shared leave to include victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, one who is sick or temporarily disabled because of a pregnancy disability, or one who is on parental leave.
So, discussion?
Yeah, this is a first read of this.
Now, I would like to ask if can we have a first read and a second and decide to make a final decision without a second read? We
You
can't.
can suspend, however, this is a policy change that would have a financial implication, so it's in your best interest to do a first read and then come back for a second.
Okay. And if it has a financial implication, can we ask that we get a sort of rough idea of what that might be?
Well, and you know, that I can't answer because we don't know if somebody's going to have an extraordinary illness and need to borrow leave. But what we can do is, we know how much accrued leave folks have. And if it all was used up at once, we could give you that expense, but.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Why is it a financial thing? Those people, okay, let me just ask my question here. You got your leave.
Yep.
Okay, now I'll give you an example, a personal one. I never left. I went to school always. I never took sick leave. And then I got an extraordinary illness. And I had 98 days accrued. I took all 98 because I was so ill. Now, it cost the district 98 days, but it was also within the contract to do so. So when the district bargains contracts, they take that into consideration. So why is that an extra expense?
Well,
I mean, I'm just asking.
so this is way off the topic, but I'll share with you that, first of all, as you all know, the state requires that we provide everybody every year 12 illness days. The state only funds 4 of them, and only for those teachers who are part of the prototypical allocation. So all of that money for all of those days comes from a variety of places that the district has. I want to back you up to understand why I'm saying that it's typically a second read. Your policy states that a policy change that would potentially have financial implications to the district requires a second read.
Now I
You may
understand.
suspend that if you think it's urgent. We don't believe this is urgent.
No, this is
to
not
suspend.
urgent.
But it's about policy, it's not about any decision. It's one of those statutes that says the public should have input, so you should do a second read.
Thank you.
That's all.
It just
Everything that
seems so-
you do
It just
has
seemed
a
like such a
financial
no-brainer to me.
impact. It is something that I suspect the board wants to do.
Yeah.
It's just a technicality. You could take the opportunity to suspend your policy and requiring a second read. I'm not seeing it as necessary.
No, I don't either. Thank you very much for the clarification. And apologies
It's
for
another
taking our
learning
time.
opportunity.
Yes, okay. All right, now, we are, oh my goodness.
Now you're on second read to decision
Yeah,
making.
right, okay. So, will you proceed? You're the presenter for every one of these. I was
I
just
am.
going to say, go for it.
Okay, so item A here is ratification of the VEA collective bargaining agreement. As you know, the board provided parameters around bargaining, had a team bargain with VEA. We bargained for a couple of weeks, not every day, but several very long days, and we came to an agreement tentatively. VEA put it in front of their membership, and 100% of those who voted yes for the tentative agreement. So they have ratified it, and I'm recommending to the board that the board consider ratifying it as well. Any questions, I'm happy to answer. The copy of the contract is there in the documents.
I've got to say this, just having, there is no reason why the board should not ratify, say the TA is fine, because if the VEA, particularly if it's 100% vote, it's completely, it's their contract, it's their negotiation.
It's actually
Our contract.
it's our collective bargain.
Yeah, but it's, they have already said they agree, and it isn't, it's going into the weeds if we mess with this, in my opinion. So I think we should.
Again, I just want to be clear, the board gave the district, the bargaining team parameters. We came into the bargain with those parameters, and met those parameters. So the board already essentially gave its marching orders.
Right, so could I have?
I mean, that was my only question, was there anything else that was approved?
No.
But you're saying no, so.
So do I have a motion to ratify the collective bargaining, VEA collective bargaining for 2025 to 2028? To say yes?
For the collective bargaining for 2025 through 2028.
And a second?
I second. And thank you, Jen, for making
Yes.
that.
Yes, very much.
And team.
And thank you, team out there. May I have the ayes? The nays? Okay. Ratification of VESP. Will you please?
So again, we bargained with VESP. We had several sessions, just like we did for VEA. We came to agreement, we had a tentative agreement. Again, it's within the parameters that the board set. We feel collectively really good about it. They too ratified at 100% of those voting yes. I'm actually quite proud of the work that the team, both teams, in both cases, did to get this to happen. And so I suggest that you vote yes.
Do I have a motion to vote yes, to vote on the 2025-2028 VESP collective bargaining agreement?
I motion to pass the 2025-2028 bargaining agreement.
Is there a second? I say. And let's put it in any discussion. Aye. Put it to vote. Yeah, aye. Okay. Motion passes. Okay, let's go on to policy 6101. This is a second read, which means that we vote on it.
And Cassie presented this to you at the last meeting. It has not changed since then, and I will recommend the changes, so this is here for you to consider tonight.
Is there any discussion on 6101 grants federal cash financial management? Do I get anyone want to make a motion?
I move to pass policy 6106.
6101.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, 6101. That's federal cash and financial management.
And is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it passes.
Okay, 6106, same thing, Cassie presented this to you. This is allowing for the federal grants and any, you went over internal controls of the federal expenditures and so on, so that you can build capacity. Is those grants.
Is there a motion to pass 6106?
I motion to pass policy 6106.
And a second? All in favor, say aye. It passes unanimously.
Okay, policy 3143, there was a change, one paragraph added to that policy down towards the bottom, that we would, if we received a report of criminal action to have been committed against a student on school property during the school day, then parents would be notified. So we have that change in there. It's the same as we showed you last time. So this is the second read. Suggesting to the board to pass this policy as written.
Okay, motion to pass 3143 as written.
I move to pass policy 3143 as written.
Second. And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it passes.
Okay, policy 4260, we had a minor change in language so that we talk about rent, not let. And we also included our non-discrimination statements in there.
Okay, motion please for 4260 to vote on for passage.
Motion to approve 4260.
Second to the motion.
I second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. It passes.
Next is policy 3210 on non-discrimination. We've added language around immigration and citizenship status, homelessness, and neurodivergence. We saw that again last meeting, and we're recommending the same.
Okay, motion to pass 3210.
I motion to pass 3210.
Second. All in favor, aye.
Policy 4220, complaints concerning staff or programs. The policy change is we changed some shalls to will, but we also added the statement that this policy applies to complaints from staff and community members. Individuals who make a complaint shall not be subject to retaliation. Any staff member who retaliates against a complainant shall be subject to discipline. I also wanted to bring to your attention that there is a procedure that I want to make sure resonates with what the board is intending by its policy. There was a recommended change to level 5. I think I've captured the board's sentiment on that, so if you could take a look at the procedure. So I'm recommending that you pass the policy, and the procedure you don't act on, but know that that's the procedure we'll post with the policy.
Could I have a motion to pass policy 4220? Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Sorry.
Okay, the motion to pass is unanimous. And that is it for the policies. Is there anyone who would like to participate in a public comment at this time?
I would just like to thank our superintendent for the bargaining and for making it much more our communal document. Starting with little things like having us sit intermingled. It just felt very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else? All right, let's proceed to superintendent report.
Well, thank you, Mackie. It was really, the feeling is mutual. Before I go into the contracts, though, I want to thank Peter for the website. He's worked all summer and it's up and running and it's beautiful, so thank you, Peter. If anyone notices any broken links or anything that should be changed, talk to Peter. And I too am really pleased that both DEA and DESP CBAs, our collective bargaining agreements, were approved by the board tonight. It was a lot of time and a lot of really good work, and it forged, I think, a better relationship all around, so I'm pleased about that. Since our last board meeting, I've spent time meeting with our leadership team and getting ready for a really terrific school year. I've kept the board up to date on that. All of the staff were together on Tuesday, which I had fun. And the food was good, and it was a really positive kickoff. I want to thank food service and all of the custodial staff for really getting us ready. I received certainly a warm welcome, and folks were very friendly and greeted me and just made me feel really welcome. I did take a tour of all of our facilities with Mark Fry. He's our facilities lead, and I'm learning about all the needs we have. September 11th, the board will be talking in a retreat from 4 to 6 with admin staff, but after that, the conversation will be all about our upcoming EP&O levy, as well as discussion around the needs that we have and the potential for getting some folks in here to do a 10-year facilities plan, namely an architect and an architect, a mechanical firm, as well as an owner rep. And it'll cost some money, but I think in the long run, it's really going to help us gear up towards what the board likely needs to do a year from February, which may be to consider a bond. We have a capital tech levy that is going to get us through those needs that we have that are imminent, that are smaller. But if we really want to update the way we should update, just give you the heads up. If you vote on a bond in a year from February, you won't break ground until February of 2028 or later, which means your buildings, the youngest building by then would be approaching 20. And then the other building would be in its 40s, and then McMurray in its 60s. So they really are going to need updates, and so thinking about a bond now is just prudent. So it doesn't mean you have to do it, it just means you're starting to think about it. So that'll be the September 11th beginning conversation. Plenty of time, no rush, just want you to know that'll be what we talked about. We did go to a commuter family picnic. It's another thing that I want the board to at least be cognizant of. Most folks were very happy to have a hot dog and hear from the middle school and high school principal. Some folks were very unhappy because kids now have to get on a 7:05 boat to get here on time, because the ferry service doesn't do a 7:20 or a 7:40. We couldn't dramatically change our start time to later, right? Because we found out 2 weeks before school started that this ferry change was happening. What I've asked our transportation folks to do is to put together a feasibility study on how we might change our timing next year. Whether or not we could do, for example, a single bus route and get everybody to school at a more reasonable time, or changing start time. What can we do? And so they're working on that. Again, very early in the process.
Who's working on that, sorry?
Transportation. They'll do a study on the feasibility and give us information, and then we can start talking about what does that look like. What I asked them to do was, is it feasible for us to do a single bus run? It would not only save money, it could potentially get our students to school at times that are more effective for their own circadian rhythms, right? To ask a 15, 16, 17-year-old person to get on a 7:05 boat to get to school by 8, we know what the research says. Yeah, we're doing it anyway because we don't really have a choice. So, again, no plan to change anything, just plan to get information to see what options there may be.
So it would be the three schools coming at the same time?
Potentially. That's what I've asked them to look at. Would the buses fit that number of students? I've done it in a past life, and I know that people will be very concerned about, young people on with older students and how do we do that. These things are possible. Other districts do them. before we even have those conversations, we need to know if it's even feasible. So, again, I'm just kind of letting you know what I'm asking folks to do rather than surprise you with, here's a study that was done on this thing, and so just thinking about it. So I don't know if you know about this, but cumulative is becoming our new management system. We're moving away from Skyward, we're going to cumulative. That's a huge shift that people are getting ready for. It's gonna happen this summer. It's like July, and
Of next July?
July 2026.
Okay, I had thought it had already happened.
No, it's been pushed off, and I pushed it off again because they want to do it in February this year. And again, they're gonna make that change when teachers are trying to put their grades in, it's like a nightmare.
No, that's insane.
So anyway, we're working with the Northwest Regional Data Center and WRDC to get these things underway. It's a lot of heavy lifting, and so we've talked to our folks about taking that, the district office in particular, taking that hour and a half on Friday morning and focusing on cleaning the data to get it ready. But it's a big deal. Last thing on my list, I met with Dove this week. Thank you for being here. Although you were different meeting, but met with those folks too. Met with Dove this week. That's the group, as you know, that put together the community work group with the district, and they're waiting for an accountability plan, which I will be giving to them. And then Heidi Jackson and I are going to provide an update to the community, probably via the Beachcomber and our website. So that's coming, and we had a meeting this week with folks around how we can protect all of our students from potential intruders on our campuses, and we went over with all of our staff our standard response protocol. We're getting signage made for many spots on the perimeter of our campus that basically says these grounds and facilities are for the use of our students and their families and invited guests. So we're moving forward. It's still August.
That's a lot, though. You covered a lot in that short time. Thank you.
Okay, so, thank you, Joe. We're moving on to board remarks. Why don't we just you have any?
I do. I think we've spent a couple hours today talking about the new hiring process, and we love Joe, but Joe's not staying. So I want to remind you that as we open all of our communities, we open up to request some feedback. It's really important that we get that feedback. Even if you have an opinion, please show up. Please let us know that opinion before we move forward. Don't wait until February and then get mad at us for who we choose if you didn't voice your opinion in the process.
River?
Just two pieces. Very sincerely gratitude for all you have done, taken on. You hit the ground running, and I am truly amazed at all that has been accomplished in this amount of time. And I'm incredibly grateful for the transparent communication and that trust has already been generated in a short amount of time, which I think speaks to the work you're doing. So I'm very grateful for that. I'm also incredibly grateful to district leadership, building leadership, all of our educators at every level for kicking off the school year. So I can speak more specifically to the Chautauqua Open House today. And it was a fantastic day, and I watched kids feeling welcomed and joyful, and I watched some kids with a little bit of anxiety, that anxiety go down. But the outreach and the tenor of that, and all the work that goes into it, just have to say an immense amount of gratitude for the way children are welcomed on this campus.
Well, first of all, thank you to Peter and Lily for being here, and of course, Dr. Spencer staying the whole night. Thank you so much. Joe, thank you for the long days. here in this building. We had a meeting with Dr. Mochan and the leadership team, and it was very refreshing to have that collaborative conversation and open doors to communicate and answer questions, and we're going to be going for, we have some questions. The community came, well, a few members of the community came for for that meeting, and it went really well. Yeah, thank you.
I'll make it very short so we can end. I'm very optimistic, and thank you, Joe. Thank you to all of the folks on all the bargaining boards and the team members and the directors for starting what is going to be a very creative and optimistic year, and I'm very pleased. So thank you all. It's a collective institution, and I think we're showing Vashon's best as we move forward. So at 8:19, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you so much. Oh.